Welcome, welcome, welcome to Awakening the Potential podcast, your gateway to the extraordinary. Today we're featuring Farah Flisher, who is mastered turning everyday moments into milestones of wisdom. As a banker by profession and an author of her memoir, Farah embodies the transition, from ordinary to extraordinary, making her the perfect guide for today's exploration. So join us as we delve into her transformative journey and glean insights to elevate your own lives. Let's embark in an enlightening journey together, and a warm welcome to you, Farah, all the way from Dubai.
Thanks, Karen. Happy to be here. We've had, I was saying, some very tropical weather, so just happy to have made it today.
Oh, I'm so grateful you were able to make it today and that you are here, because I know, what time is it there in on your neck of the woods?
It's coming up to 10 past 7 in the evening.
Okay,
So,
so yeah,
yeah, getting
very
to the end of my day.
getting to the end of your day. So thank you for making the time to be here. Seriously.
Not at all.
So coming from an ordinary to extraordinary, and really here to inspire our listening audience, what was it that you would say was that one thing that ignited your ordinary to extraordinary moment and stepping into your potential?
I don't know if it could sort of be one moment versus a lifetime of experiences which help you transition. And at some point, I don't even know if you ever arrive at the extraordinary or even realize that you've arrived. It's a constant sort of journey and enhancement. But I think my childhood, which was different, shall we say, not usual, not ordinary. I was born in London. I'm a Parsi by faith. And then when I was 4 years old, my mum took me to India to visit my maternal grandmother. And I sort of grew up in India, not by any grand design, but almost, a series of coincidences and series of events that occurred with the adults in my life, but, impacted me. So I grew up in North India, but I was always an outsider looking in. I didn't, sound the same or look the same. I didn't speak the language when I first arrived. And then when I was 18, I'd made the decision to go back to London to try and become a doctor. That was what I wanted to be, because um, if I didn't leave at 18, I'd have to relinquish my UK passport and all that sort of life admin stuff. So I went back, could not pursue that desire to train to be a doctor again through a series of circumstances, and then ended up in banking again by very much no grand design, but almost just by coincidence. And I'm still there 30 years later. And I think through life, what each lesson or each sort of experience has taught me is to be more self sufficient, to be able to be more independent, to rely on myself, but also to master my potential, if you like, and to harness my mastery over myself, if you like, to learn to work with myself, my good, my bad, my light, my shadow, but to know where my strengths lie and to be able to deploy those. So I think it's a constant journey. There's no sort of end point, but I'm at a place where I feel like I know who I am a bit better, and I feel I can face life's challenges with a little bit more life experience. We've been through a few. So yeah, that's kind of how I describe it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Obviously, you've been in banking now for 30 some odd years, right?
Plus, yes, yeah,
Plus
yeah.
years, right? At a day, right? 30 in a
Yeah,
day.
yeah, 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 absolutely.
So what are the lessons that you learned from banking? Like, what has it taught you? You're still there. So obviously it's something that you maintain. I am going to assert that you either really enjoy it or there's still lessons to be learned from it, right? You're learning all constantly. Have you learned anything like huge from the banking construct?
I think Means I owe my corporate culture, if you like, to the world of banking. I entered it aged 18. I'd come from India. I didn't really have a corporate, any examples of corporate culture, if you like, and my family weren't corporate by nature. They were business people. So I entered, as a very young person and absorbed a whole lot of information. So I think my ability to navigate the corporate sphere,
Mhm.
and everything that comes with it, the good and the politics and the stakeholder management, as we said, and we joked, I can manage my finances. I have the good fortune to lead a team, so I've developed my leadership skills,
Beautiful.
and my people management skills, and just your ability again to talk to you, someone I haven't met across a line, but to be able to hold a conversation. I think a lot of that I attribute to the fact that I've worked with people in different countries. So being able to present on a conference call or in a meeting or on a
Yeah.
telephone line, those are skills that are transferable into any walk of life. So I owe a lot to my career.
I love that, and thank you for sharing that. So, for the listening audience, I'm just curious because a lot of people find numbers, let alone finances, very intimidating, right? I mean, not all of us were born with the calculator in our brain. Not that I'm saying you are, but for those that are listening, what is the one thing that you would say for somebody who's starting out? I know myself, for instance, and I'll just talk from my own experiences. I went through a divorce, a really hellacious divorce, and my former husband was like, "You take care of the kids, and I'll take care of the bacon," so to speak. So before we had got married, I always took care of my own finances and always managed it really, really well. There are a lot of people in today's society in today's world where they're not divorcing and they're finding themselves scrambling to really get their finances in order and even look at it was very intimidating for me back in the day. Well, do you have any words of wisdom that would support somebody in those spaces going through their own transitions?
Sure, I can completely empathize. I was in exactly the same position. So, been in banking, been very independent, got married, not dissimilar to your situation. And I'm not even going to say it was forced upon me. I think it's also part of my upbringing. The gentleman's in charge of the finances and the lady, runs the house. And for a couple of years, I stepped back when I had my kids and they were young. And then when I went back into my career, there was this whole joint pot construct thing. And then when the marriage unraveled, not dissimilar to you, I stepped back in to take control. But I had the advantage of having been in banking throughout. So numbers don't scare me as such. But again, I'm not, a human computer at all. The trusted calculator on the phone comes
Mhm.
up, every time I'm having a conversation. But I think, I would encourage ladies to stay involved in the household finances. I would challenge that sort of societal construct that the gentleman's in charge of the finances and the lady doesn't need to worry herself, which sounds great till things are not good. And then, it's
Yeah,
not a great outcome for the lady. So I'd hugely encourage them to be involved, to be informed. I'd also say always have an independent stream of income, whatever it is, whether it's part time or hobby that you can translate into something. I would strongly, strongly encourage ladies to have that financial independence. It gives them choices. I know so many people who don't have a choice because they don't have the financial wherewithal to make a choice and
exactly.
are sort of trapped in a situation that they can't get out of. And on the exit out, get advice. If numbers are worrying and you don't feel it's your strength, invest a little bit in a financial advisor or someone who can give you sound advice. I think it's really worth investing in yourself because they will help you sort out your future numbers and help you build whatever financial future you want to build. That would
I
be
love
my
that.
advice.
Yeah, I love that, Farah. Thank you. Because yeah, I've invested so much in myself to get myself to that space. But there are so many people that are in that space of lack. And I
Mm.
hear more times than not lack of money, lack of funds, lack of, but yet their choices are such where it shows me there's a fear. So when there's a fear and people come to you in banking and there's a fear around finances and money, and is there something that you share with them to help alleviate that fear? Because usually fear is just something, the unknown. It's stretching and taking ourselves over the threshold of comfort zone and saying, okay, it's learnable. It's not, anything to really be afraid of necessarily. But do you have any words of wisdom around that?
I I think means banking, and you could apply to any walk of life or any sphere, right? As you said, it's the unknown. So I think if you break it out into its simplest terms, right? It's a
Yeah.
debit and a credit. And I remember when I used to learn about slightly more complicated financial terms like stocks or options or whatever, I would break it down into handbags and shoes. I've got 10
Love it.
handbags to buy or 10 shoes to sell. And then all of a sudden the brain
We're
could
such women.
completely, yeah, I would get the concept and the principles. So I think just
Exactly.
find someone who can explain it, and if I'm talking to someone, I will try and explain it in the simplest terms. Because
Absolutely.
there will always be that more complicated version of that financial sphere. But, if you're dealing in running a home, you're dealing in children's education, you're dealing in, just making sure you can sustain the lifestyle, then we can keep it really simple.
Absolutely. And thank you for that. Thank you for that. One of the things my coach, I've invested in coaches over the years for years and years. I've invested in myself, right? And one of the things
Great.
that she has us do when we're goal setting, and I love this because it's really made the hugest difference. So I'm sharing it with you, everyone, and hopefully you'll find some value in it. But we do a 60-day goal, our target goal, in whatever area it is. It's like pick one thing. But before we do that, we do a GPS check-in, and to see where
Okay.
you're at. And one of the check-ins is not just health and well-being, not just your career, but it's finances. Finances fall under the category of health and well-being. So when you're checking in, it's like know where you're at. And when you know where you're at, you know where you're going. So when you're
Correct.
creating a target, a financial target, let's say, if you know where you're at, you know what the gap is, you'll know how to close that gap and bring it to fruition. So just sharing that because it's made a
Great.
huge difference. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Do you
think it's just knowing, it's awareness, right?
that's
And it's
awareness?
about when it's interesting that you've put it in the well-being bucket, the wealth and well-being, because so much of our emotional security is tied up to financial security, just
Yes.
the way, we have to live our lives. And I know it's very true of me that if I have a handle on my finances and I know what is, and I know how I can navigate, whatever period of time, things feel a little bit more stable for me. So
Absolutely.
really
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Great advice.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Coming from a well-being space, because that's my jam, right? I'm a former nurse. Yeah, that's my jam is well-being and stress. If you're stressing over your finances, right, you're holding on to that stress, which causes dis-ease in your body until you emote it and get it out. And you have a choice, right? To get
Mhm.
educated, ask. You don't know, you don't ask, you don't get. So I've learned to really open my mouth and ask for support and if I don't know something, whether it be financial or whatever it is, I learn to ask now. And then I get curious, right? The curiosity of a child to say, wow, like I can learn this. It's not as challenging as I thought and what's possible. I love the fact of awareness. Shakespeare talks in Hamlet, and I think it was 1533 he wrote Hamlet, and it's to thine own self be true. So when you're true to yourself and you know who you are and what you want, you know where you're going, part of that is your financial goals. So I love
Mhm.
this conversation. So thank you for
Yeah.
just
You're
because
welcome.
it's not just, taking care of your nutrition, and that's not my jam, but my jam is really getting yourself out of your own way and getting the stories we tell ourselves. And I'm sure there's so many people, and you're in Dubai, I'm here in the United States. I'm sure you come across, because I believe it's a global conversation. We tell stories to ourselves and we tie up our identity around the stories we tell ourselves, the lack, for instance. I don't have financial whatever, and you're making it mean that it's about you. It doesn't. You just haven't educated yourself around it yet or had the desire to do it. Because once you get the desire, then anything is possible, right? So what's your take?
True. But I think it's an interesting topic you raise. For me, so when I went through my divorce,
Mhm.
if you go to a social engagement, you would say, I am X person, I work in this organization, this is my
Right.
husband, or I'm so and so's wife. But I think there comes a point, or there came a point for me where I had to define my identity in who I am as an individual,
Absolutely.
regardless of the social trappings. And again, these are societal measures of success, but everyone might measure abundance differently. I
Absolutely.
might say abundance is having time to go to the beach at sunset, which may or not occur, but that might be a measure of success for me if I
Exactly.
can build a life that
That's
allows me to do that. So I think I would counsel against linking our identity to material possessions or
exactly.
even marital construct or any other sort of part of life. I think as an individual, we need to know ourselves. I do agree we need to be super aware of ourselves and what our drivers are. So if
Absolutely.
financial stability is something that gives me emotional stability, which helps me feel the
Mhm.
well-being that we're talking about, then I need to work towards making that happen, right? I
Exactly.
also Physical health is important for me. So going to the gym or practicing yoga or,
Right.
walking or whatever is super important, again, for my mental well-being, but it's linked to my physical well-being. So I think
Right.
everyone has to maybe just run that query on themselves. What gives me joy? What makes me happy? What makes me feel the best version of me? And then invest in those, tools to help you along the way.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's really getting down to knowing what you want
Mm.
and then defining from there who you're becoming on the journey and the lessons you're learning from that to build on that as well. I don't want to overstep you're author of a memoir,
Yeah.
let's touch on that. And just to reiterate, all of your information is going to be in the show notes. So if anybody would like to reach out to you, all your information will be there as well. But give us a little brief around what the memoir is and, what your intention was to get it out there in the world.
So I briefly mentioned my childhood wasn't very conventional, if you like. It was rather unconventional, and that's all predicated on my mother. So the book is titled Meher and Me. Meher was my mother's name. And then again, my mom lived this very large life. She was this very big personality. And in our hometown in North India, there was a gun crime, and she lost her life through that crime. So for a long time, it was about my writing was journaling or processing grief. And then it sort of all came together into an outpouring. And as they say, it says creativity comes to you or inspiration comes to you, not necessarily from you. And I wrote pages and pages that I didn't know would take the form of a book at the time. And I sent them to friends and people I trusted for feedback. And it eventually took the form of a memoir. I published it to honor my mom and her memory and the whole of her, not just how she left us, but the whole of her life. So yeah, it's an honor and in memory of my mother.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Farah. This has been such a great connection, and I'm so grateful you reached out. Before we part, is there some words of wisdom that you would like to impart on the listening audience that's going to make a difference in their lives as they journey from ordinary to extraordinary?
I'd probably say trust the process. When you're at the start of the journey, you're not quite sure how it's going to work out, but that's part of it. It will work out. So trust the process, trust that you have the strength within you as well. I truly believe we're not given anything more than we can handle. So
Okay.
know that you have the strength within you to overcome it, to get past it, to, live a fulfilling life, and invest in yourself. Invest in yourself as you're going through whatever transition, transformation, challenge, crisis, whatever's happening. Don't lose sight of yourself and continue to invest in yourself.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you, Farah, so much for being here and taking your evening to be with us, for your
Thank you.
contributions. It's been such a pleasure, and I look forward to continuing a connection as it's been wonderful. And I wish you all the best there, and hopefully you'll stay safe in the floods there.
Thank you, Karen. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Till then, to be extraordinary because you already are. Claim it, own it, and I look forward to continually being inspired with you all. Bye for now.